E eu gostaria de convidar agora a próxima apresentadora, que vai ser a professora Cecily Raynor.
Thank you so much. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be part of Transcreation, an event that brings together many of the things that I love, including multilingualism, digital culture, elit, and contemporary Latin American cultural production. My work has taken an increasingly digital turn in recent years and examines the web as a cultural sphere in which digital identities challenge geographical ties and new territories of language develop. Within this expanded realm, I have been fortunate to be able to closely explore digital artifacts through deep textual analysis in tandem with computational methods, including text mining, web analytics, and data visualizations to illuminate complex cultural relationships online. At the heart of my scholarship is an attention to contemporary cultural artifacts, be they textual or visual, analog or digital. I am cognizant that the parameters of culture span from canonical novels to Twitter fiction and memes, and I'm committed to expanding what it means to produce culture and to giving space and voice to artists, writers, bloggers, and poets on the periphery of my fields. As we step further into the 21st century, we are progressively obliged to move outside of the sanctioned and sanitized walls of the academy and into the halls of chat rooms, web forums, and comment sections, digital back alleys with their own forms of expression in order to interrogate contemporary life. As a region known for its diversity and multilingualism, Latin America provides ample case studies with lessons on digital life that are both local and global in their expression, and often supersede geographical parameters. I wanted to briefly mention a co-edited volume coming out in January of 2022 that may be of interest to some in our audience, in which you will find chapters from 11 scholars, including our keynote for today, Eduardo Ledesma, as well as myself and Kate Bundy. We are thrilled to be able to share our work with you early next year. Today, I'll be speaking briefly about the work of Milton Läufer, an Argentine digital artist and poet who resides in Berlin. I chose to speak about Läufer today because of the detailed craft upon which his digital body of work relies, exploring the constraints of media, and in particular, algorithmic intervention into creative works. This detailed focus on constraints, on the poetic opportunities abundant in new media, and on the transcreative possibilities of digital texts, I argue, place Läufer in an interesting dialogue with G. Campos and the major themes of our conference. At the same time, machine learning, natural language processing, and AI, as well as other forms of algorithmic intervention, increasingly alter how end users, consumers, and readers engage with and perceive creative works. Entangled in the human, algorithms nevertheless evoke a sense of loss of control of a digital object, as well as a looming mystery on origin. Nowhere is this more apparent than in literary texts, where the randomization of plot lines or machine intervention into poetics have an immediate impact on how users interact with digitally born literature. The wealth of theoretical work on algorithmic intervention into humanistic questions from authors including Ed Finn, Ian Bogost, Benjamin Schmidt, Ted Underwood, and Andrew Piper, a colleague of mine at McGill, probes the relationship between machines and digitized and digitally born texts. If we look to a definition of electronic literature from major scholars, including Leonardo Flores or Carolina Gainza, we're reminded of the importance of language within our understanding of elit. Flores states, electronic literature is language-centered art that engages the expressive potential of electronic and digital media. Meanwhile, Carolina Gainza reminds us that digital literature is, quote, that which is created to be read in electronic format and whose existence is sustained through the use of programming languages. Thus, we're reminded that elit relies not only on language textualities, but also on the medium in which that language is housed and embedded, sustained through technological intervention, even in its most basic form, such as HTML. What happens when digital literary texts are disrupted by, collided with, and or transcreated by algorithms? If we write algorithmic expression ourselves, can we control its impact? What are the limits of human intervention into algorithmic design? These are some of the questions that arise when thinking of the possibilities and constraints of technological intervention into creative works. Milton Läufer has been using algorithms to produce and transform literature since 2001. His work is unique in its historical depth and technical intervention. Indeed, Läufer programs his own code and constructs his own algorithmic parameters from myriad multilingual projects. Läufer is known for his digital projects, including an algorithmic generated novel called Lagunas, which I will speak about briefly today, as well as poetry, short stories, and other creative works, all of which can be accessed through his website, which I'll show you very briefly. Actually, you can see the website here in the background, and here you can see his works. You can actually filter by language. You can also look at like by temporality, so you can look at them by year. And then there is a series of ways of downloading these works as well. Läufer further explores his own creative projects on the website, an authorial intervention which illuminates his work in personal ways. He reflects upon projects both in English and Spanish. According to Dennis Tenen, quote, "The future of reading and writing is inexplorably intertwined with the development of computer science and software engineering, proving that Läufer's electronic literature is an important part of the evolution of all texts." Between the years of 2001 and 2021, Läufer has published 98 projects, including poetry, short novels, visual renderings evocative of Latin American concretismo and constructivism. For the purposes of today's talk, I will now turn to Lagunas and then conclude with some remarks on Läufer's work as a crucial node within a born digital avant-garde at the turn of the 21st century in Latin America. Indeed, experimentation with technopoetics and digital environments in the early 2000s produced a wealth of born digital artistic projects that aim to provoke and probe into the limits of all texts. In doing so, I connect Läufer's work with what I see as a born digital avant-garde, with a particular focus on digital mediums that rely on modes of reading that are multisensorial, including sight and sound, and experimentation with constraints of language. Läufer published Lagunas in 2015, a novel that is generated based upon Läufer's writings and then algorithmic intervention. Each downloaded copy of this novel is unique. And if we return to the website, you can sort of see where you can download the novel. And again, every downloaded version of this is unique. Läufer has been quoted as stating that, quote, "What I was trying to do with Lagunas was to create a novel that would be indistinguishable from that having been written by a human." I think that in this way, the novel is relatively successful. In his study of cultural ramifications of search, What Algorithms Want, Imagination in the Age of Computing, Ed Finn discusses the limitations of computational and machine-based search for deducing human desire, calling for an investigation into the limitations of search as a mode of grasping complex cultural territories. Finn interrogates the claim that algorithms will one day have the possibility of mimicking human behavior with a high level of accuracy, questions that are important when approaching Lagunas and other algorithmically altered creative works. Important questions emerge in this research, including what makes a text recognizable as humanly generated, especially in the sophisticated landscapes of contemporary AI, machine learning, and natural language processing. If an algorithmic intervention is simply a constraint, how do texts operate as malleable materials to intermingle with these parameters? What is the role of play in the design of algorithms? What is the line between human and machine in this increasingly sophisticated landscape of bots and generated textualities? Finally, I would like to conclude briefly by noting that Läufer's work forms part of a rich landscape of artists, poets, and authors in the region that has increased in volume and significance since the turn of the 21st century. With an increased interest in algorithmic intervention, these authors include Ana Maria Uribe, Jose Urbuto, Alejandro Corredor Parra, and many others that I'll show you in a moment. In future work, I wish to explore the notion of a digital avant-garde in the region, one that explores language constraints as they relate to and intersect with machine intervention. The future of eLit, Latin America, and beyond will undeniably be marked by a changing technological landscape that challenges, explores, and resists the interventions of algorithmic design. I'm going to go ahead and just briefly, since I have a couple of more minutes, share my screen and show you both Läufer's website and also this wonderful anthology that's available called Littérature. So I'll go ahead and share that now. Okay, so here is Milton's website. I think it's quite comprehensive. You can see all of the works, there are 98 that you can find here. If you search for Lagunas, which is the algorithmically altered novel, you can see that here. And then also it marks whether it's in Spanish or in English. So you can download here. And then this is the actual, the most contemporary version is 0.98.5. You can actually view all of the various versions of the novel that were ever produced. So the novel, the algorithm also has changed over time, which I think is quite fascinating. So that's Lagunas. However, again, there are works in English and Spanish. He's also done a really interesting work in tribute to George Floyd's death or assassination, really, called I Cannot Breathe. So I would encourage you to also look at that. I think it's pretty powerful. And then finally, I just wanted to throw a quick note to Litilat, which is a wonderful volume of digital literature and art, poetry, etc., that's been put together by a number of folks, including Leonardo Flores. And you can see all of the authors listed here. You'll see that here's Milton Läufer, so you can see a bit about him, but it includes authors from Brazil and the rest of Latin America as well. So it's really quite exciting in that regard. You can search by country, and I'll say that very quickly. So Argentina, you'll see Brazil here. So this is a really neat project that I would encourage you to have a look at your leisure. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Cecily, for your presentation and for sharing these websites with us. And I think it's on the chat right now. So if anyone wants to check it, it's available there.